I'm Deborah Bow, and I'd like to share with you a little technique called strategies today. And when you understand strategies, you understand why it is that people do what they do, and you also understand that we use strategies for everything we do in life. Now, what is a strategy? A strategy is something we do in our mind and body that produces a predictable result. So it's something we do in our mind and body that produces a predictable result. It's an order and sequence of something we do. So how I explain a strategy is, I want you to think of baking a cake. If you're going to bake a cake, there's an order and sequence to doing that, isn't there? So you might get the bowl out first, and then you might get the butter and the eggs and the flour and whatever else, or in this day and age you might get the packet of cake mix and the eggs. But there's an order and sequence to the way you do it. So that's what we do with strategies inside our mind and body. There's an order and sequence to everything we do. So I want you to think about getting up in the morning. If you were to get out of bed in the morning, there's an order and sequence to how you do that. And believe it or not, you do it the same way every morning. I know I've asked people this when I do relationship work as to, what's the first thing your partner says in the morning when they wake up? And then what do they do? And then what do they do before they finally get out of bed? Do they roll over a couple of times? Do they hit that alarm 3 or 4 times before they get up? Do they talk to you first, or are they silent, or do they pull the blind? There's an order and sequence to what you do every morning before you get out of bed. So I want you to think about it. We're goal-setting machines. So you have a goal to get out of bed. And then once you've achieved that goal, you have maybe a goal to get in the shower. And then once you achieve that, and there's an order and sequence to how you have your shower, then you get out of your shower, and maybe your next goal is to get dressed. And there's an order and sequence to how you do that. You may put your top half on first, or your bottom half on first, but there's surely an order and sequence to how you do that as well. And then once you've got dressed, there might be a goal to go and have coffee or clean your teeth, whatever it is you do next. You see, we're goal-setting machines, and we do goal after goal after goal after goal, and every one of those goals has a little micro strategy within it, inside it. So every strategy that we do is effective. And it's important to remember, every strategy we do is effective. And I do know that all of our strategies, or the majority of our strategies, are unconscious. And this is why it's very hard to change a strategy, because we only use 5 to 10% of our mind consciously. The other 95% is unconscious. So this is where this work gets exciting for me. So now in our trainings, we teach you how to elicit or to find out how a person does a certain thing to get a predictable result. We teach you, so there's 4 things we can do with strategies. We can elicit a strategy, we can install a strategy, we can fulfill a strategy, and we've got a learning strategy. So now let's talk about the learning strategy first. So imagine if you wanted to learn the strategy or the wealth building strategy of Oprah Winfrey or Richard Branson. Surely they have an order and sequence to what they did to get to where they are. And if you learn those wealth building strategies, then you can install them in yourself so that you can achieve the same result. So now, bearing in mind that we have a strategy for everything we do. We have a strategy for being happy, we have a strategy for being sad, we have a strategy, a motivational strategy, a buying strategy, a strategy to be depressed. We have a strategy for everything we do. And it's important to remember that. So now let me give you an example. If somebody walks into my room and they say, I'm depressed. Now the first thing I think in my mind is, how do you do that? How do you do that? Now, if I've got really good rapport with this person, I might come out with that straight away and say, well, how do you do that? And the answer is always, I don't do depression. I am depressed. But surely they do. There's an order and sequence of what they do here to get them to depressed. Because there's surely times when they've been happy, when they've been excited, when they've been curious, when they've been bored. So they're not always depressed. So then I'll ask them, can you remember a time, a specific time, when you were last depressed? And they say, well, sure. So then I get them to go back to that time. So go back to that time, drop back down into that time, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt at the time. And they say, yeah. And they say, now rewind the movie just a little bit back before you were depressed. What was it that had to happen to let you know to begin to be depressed? Was it a picture you made in your mind? Was it something you said? Was it something you felt? Was it touch? Was it a look? What was it that let you know it was time to start depressing? And surely, just by being curious and taking it apart, piece by piece by piece by piece, we find that surely there is an order and sequence to what they do to get them to that state of depression. So strategies are very exciting things for me. We can do great things for people once we learn their strategy and how they get from here to here, especially if it's not working for them. Then we can go in and install a more empowering strategy. And I especially love strategies when it comes to love strategies. We all have a love strategy, and it's as unique as our thumbprint. So once we elicit or find out somebody's particular love strategy, then we can step into that strategy and fulfill it. And if you teach them your love strategy, then they can step into that and fulfill yours. It makes for a magic relationship and total understanding of each other. Because strategies let us understand why it is that people do what they do and how everybody's running a strategy for everything they do in life. So I hope this has been of some value to you, and we'll catch you next week on the